Jorge Mario Bergoglio, otherwise known as Pope Francis, is a religious leader unlike any other. He's tolerated the LGBT community, acknowledged the Big Bang Theory, and has even ditched lunch with Congress to dine among the homeless population of Washington, D.C. And during his historic visit to the United States, the Argentinian has already addressed issues critical to American politics, everything from capitalism and climate change to immigration and capital punishment. To iron out all the specifics, I'm joined now by legal analyst, news decoder, and Emmy Award-winning journalist Lionel of LionelMedia.com. Lionel, thank you so much for taking the time today.
My pleasure.
So Lionel, during the pontiff's address to the joint session of Congress just the other day, he made repeated mention of the word dialogue, referencing Catholic writer Thomas Merton. I found this a bit ironic that he's speaking to politicians who historically are very uncompromising in their ideology, but as a result of the Pope saying this, do you feel as if these politicians will begin reaching their hands across the aisle, so to speak, to compromise and collaborate, or will we continue to see more of the same political gridlock in Washington?
No, of course not. It's pipe dream. It's nonsense. It's illusory, but it's a nice thought. It's wonderful. Look, let's face it. First and foremost, you know, can you think of anybody that can captivate the country in as many different strata as this Pope has, as Bergoglio has? I mean, it's amazing. Look, what he did was terrific. Remember, he is the Pope. And by the way, forgive me ahead of time for jumping all over the place because I've got a lot to say. He's not a liberal. He's the Pope. He's the vicar of Christ. And I'm not speaking on behalf of the church by any stretch of the imagination. I was raised in the Catholic Church, went to Catholic school, and taught by the Jesuits, and I have tremendous respect for them. So I'm not speaking on behalf of their theology, but he is the vicar of Christ. If Jesus Christ were, I mean, just imagine this, showed up, Fox News would have him canned immediately as some kind of a leftist, Marxist, talking about the poor, anti-capitalist. I mean, think about this. The Pope, his message has been consistent. I mean, with the papacy. You know, people think, you know, one thing or another as far as who the Pope is. And as you know, Andrew, most people don't know what they're talking about. They really don't know what they're talking about. They look at John Paul II, or J.P. Deuce, as I call him, as being a wonderful person, and they liked him by virtue of his countenance and his way of speaking. Ratzinger, Benedict, they saw him as being more empirical, and he did more to go after rogue priests than John Paul II did. So look, Francis is a wonderful person, but don't look at the papacy as how nice he is to people. Don't say, isn't that wonderful because he's so sweet, he has a nice smile. Yes, he does, but there's more to it than that. You know, Paul VI was incredibly important. The first pope ever to visit the U.S. in 1965 when he met with LBJ. It basically gave him his mind about the Vietnam War. So, you know, what I invite your viewers and listeners to do is, in addition to marveling at the headlines, go back and review the history of this, if that makes any sense.
Interestingly, Lionel, the Pope made no specific mention of ISIS during his address, despite there being obviously persecution of Christians by that terrorist group. Why do you think he excluded such a critical topic of discussion?
Well, who exactly? I mean, I don't know. That would have been wonderful. There is a list of what he did not talk about. That, by nature, by definition, is infinite. By virtue of what he did not talk about. I don't know what ISIS is going to do, a speech on ISIS to Congress. Very frankly, I would prefer he not do that, because as you know, what the Congress will do is they will look at this as some kind of a green light for more war and more, theoretical war. In fact, I'm kind of glad he didn't. The persecution of Christians, it would have been nice, but look at the people that he's dealing with. Perhaps maybe he should have made that speech in Saudi Arabia or other countries as well.
In the past, Pope Francis has been a very vocal proponent of the redistribution of wealth, that obviously being a pillar of socialism. However, the other day he praised capitalism for its creation of jobs as an alternative means to mitigate poverty in this world. In your view, Lionel, as many people criticize Francis, do you think he's anti-capitalist? Why or why not?
No, of course not. Look who he is. He's a first third world pope. He's the first non-European, and he's a Jesuit. When you talk about redistribution of wealth, let me give you the typical, prototypical right-wing, the archetypal bumper sticker playbook right-wing. Redistribution of wealth. Communism, socialism, Marxism. You have no idea what that means. What does that mean? All right, Warren Buffett, give me your money. Let's give it out to these people. That's the way it's perceived. Redistribution of wealth. He lauds capitalism. Nobody's ever talked about capitalism. Why is it that the richest of the rich, by the way, no one that we know, believe me, the people that I'm talking about, you don't know them. I don't know them. We're talking about the uber stratospheric wealthy. Why is it, and how have they conned the world into thinking that the world's interests are commensurate with theirs? How is it that somebody suggesting that Wall Street, asset stripping globalist elites, that somehow you and I and the rest of the world share their interest? I mean, it's the greatest con in the world.
Lionel, it's no doubt the Pope's words are inspiring. He's talking about equality, justice, liberty, etc. But we've heard all of this before from religious and political leaders. Do you think anything will actually change? For example, will we take in Syrian refugees? Will we abolish capital punishment? Will we refrain from going to war in the future? Or are the Pope's words really just falling on deaf ears?
Falling on deaf ears. That is completely, his words are completely antithetical to the political climate in this country. We are a country that is in love with our death penalty. We are in love with war. We're in love with the war on terror, the fictional, fictive ersatz fugazi counterfeit war on terrorism. We love that. Americans will never question war. Never. That was in the 60s. Not anymore. Today, give them a spooky, scary group with a name you can't explain. Change the names of these people frequently. For example, go from Al-Qaeda to AQI, which is Al-Qaeda in Iraq, to ISIS, ISIL. Forget the Levant. Nobody knows what this is. To Khorasan, Al-Nusra Front, Daesh, Boko Haram. I mean, you can't. And as soon as Americans grasp, oh, ISIS? No, it's ISIL. Okay, it's ISIL. Don't forget Daesh. Same group of people. It's like central casting. Capital punishment? Capital punishment does not work. Capital punishment is a travesty. Capital punishment is a scourge against humanity. It is the foundation of so many people in this country. So to answer your question, is it going to make any difference? Of course not. Of course not. And by the way, the people who are, again, I talk about the right a lot. The prototypical left have no bumper stickers at all. It's one thing you say about the right and conservatives and the archetypal Republicans. They know what they're talking about. I mean, they have something to say. They have a game plan. They have a theology, if you will. The left doesn't. They exist by being anti-right. I mean, if you watch MSDNC anytime, and what you'll see is, did you hear what John Boehner said today? Did you hear what Donald Trump said today? Did you hear what did you say today? I don't know, but did you hear what? So I'm kind of hard on the right, it seems like, because at least they're saying something. But we are a country that lives in a veneer, a tissue-thin veneer of unicellular issues, a surface level of really simple concepts. So what we have is a group of people here who are into little sound bites, but they're not serious about actually listening to the word of God or Christ. Are you kidding me? It's never going to happen. So did it fall on deaf ears? Yes. Is it good to hear anyway? Yes. Will anything happen or change? Not on the governmental level, maybe on the spiritual level of the citizenry, but not Washington by any stretch of the imagination.
Lionel, legal analyst, news decoder, and Emmy Award-winning journalist, thank you so much again for your time today.
Thank you, sir, and feel better.